these two presentations are open for potential questions or comments from your own, so don't hesitate if something is not clear, or if you already have some issues that you would like to share with us. Yes, Klaus Rose.
I have two comments. Klaus Rose, Basel, Switzerland. One is, in both presentations by Daniel and Agnes, it said that the issue is developing new medicines for children. I think for an ethics committee member, it's important to realize we are not discussing about developing new medicines for children. We are discussing about an industry that predominantly develops new medicines for adults, and the pediatric committee ensures that children are taken into consideration in this process. If we would discuss about developing new medicines for children, we would need state budgets, and it would be a completely different discussion, although there would be overlapping areas. Just a clarification. And the other, Agnes claimed that they never asked for clinical trials to be conducted in Europe. From the discussions with the PEDCO, I must say in concrete projects, it was pediatric committee members that asked that clinical trials should be performed to some percentage in Europe. They said 50% or so. So again, this is something just for clarification.
Well, I'm not sure you clarify, because actually it's not exactly what I said. I said for the purpose of regulatory requirement, we do not require the trials to be performed in Europe as a mandatory requirement. The pediatric committee may consider that the patient, for scientific reasons, are not similar outside of Europe and within Europe, and for this reason may require the demonstration of the benefit of the medicines in European children. It's a completely different matter.
And you know very well that in domains of is it psychiatry or nutrition, things like that, we might have completely different views even across the Atlantic. So it has nothing to do with third countries. This is a legislation for the children of Europe. It's focusing on Europe. Obviously, it's not excluding, and we are trying in the committee to have a broader view in this respect as much as possible, but we have also to make sure that this is applicable, I would say, inside the Union. Peter?
Peter Helms, Chair of NPRIMA. My question relates to the interpretation of the Clinical Trials Directive, because it seems to me that most member states, that Clinical Trials Directive tends to take precedence over national legislation when investigational products are involved. Now, as I understand it, the Clinical Trials Directive, the age of competence of a child is 18, sorry. So I'm aware that in different member states, although this holds weight in terms of investigational products, for phase 4 studies, long-term exposure studies, for example, other national legislation may take precedence. For example, I know in Scotland we have, and in the UK, there is legislation about the age of competence of children. Children as young as 12, or if they're able to understand, can refuse, and their parents can have no part in the procedure at all. And that is causing some confusion. Certainly I find that. I don't know if other colleagues from other countries are finding that. So it would be very helpful to have some clarity around that issue. And central to that also is this issue of definitions of minimal, medium, and high risk, because that's where there's a huge amount of variation.
So on the first point, first you have to distinguish between research and care, because what you're talking about in the UK is about mostly competence to decide on care. In terms of research, there is very often a difference in the member state. First, I have to say the European directive takes precedence over national law, because the national law has to be modified according to the directive. So clearly there is no age of minority or majority in the directive. So there is no definition. When we looked across member states, all member states except one part of the UK, which is Scotland, had 18 as the age of majority. The only region or country, I don't know how you call it, nation, yeah, in Scotland is 16, but all other member states at 18 for the age of majority, so not to be considered a minor and therefore not requiring a legal representative age. They said at national level, sometimes people have agreed that adolescents can provide informed consent, but in a way this is contradictory with the legislation which require the age of majority. So there are internal inconsistencies or different approaches, but if you look at the text it says minority majority.
My question is this an issue? I mean, I happen to work in Scotland, so we have a particular issue there. But is this a problem for other member states in the interpretation of the law?
Maybe you have some comments here, or you would like to contribute? Anybody facing difficulties? Yes, please.
We have 16 to clinical trials.
Can you state who you are and where you come from?
Rosário Stern from Portugal. We have in clinical trials, we use 16 as the age for agreement. And we use that, not the 18 as the majority.
Okay.
It is clearly a problem, I see, especially for adolescents. I think adolescents should be able to provide informed consent and not necessarily, especially for trials that are of relevance or where also they want some privacy and discretion compared to their parents. They don't want to have their parents aware that they are, for example, consulted in a trial on sexual behavior or on the usage of drugs and things like that. So that is the contraception and so on. So this is really an issue, I think.
Yes, please.
Hi, this is Alex Cvetkovic Montagnola from INC Research. I'm a pediatrician. So a part of the informed consent, I think that within European Union we should harmonize a little bit the assent forms because it's very country specific. The age range, the age groups are different. But apart of that, I would like to go from this meeting with some clear understanding about other problems, ethical problems, and that is a study design, because you were speaking that there are different legislation outside of Europe. However, I don't understand how it's possible that the same study design is objected or rejected by some EU member state and is approved in other, and all of them follow the same legislation. And also, you know, for example, in the Netherlands and or in Romania, phase 1 clinical trials on sick patients are prohibited, and in other countries like Spain, Portugal, and so on are allowed. So I know that how works European Union, and I know this national portion, and I fully understand also cultural differences. However, I think that we should use the opportunity and to harmonize a little bit these ethical considerations regarding ethics, pediatric clinical trials. Thank you.
Thank you. I think your comment exemplifies that, in fact, although we are under the same umbrella legislation, we have different legislations in the implementation across countries, and that's surely a hurdle. More comments or more questions? Yes, please, Petra.
I have one comment. I wonder whether this guideline, ethical considerations for clinical trials, which was done by the ad hoc group, really reaches the targets, which are the ethics committees. I was asked 2 years ago to give a talk in Berlin, and I had to ask the ethics committees in Germany whether they work with that guideline. And most of them even don't know the guideline. And I think this is still the same. So I don't think the guideline reaches the target group. And I know the guideline, and I think it is too long. It should be shorter with checklists. And I think there must be more communication, not only between EMA and authorities, but also between EMA and research ethics committees.
Several reactions from your side. Do you all work with the other group guideline from 2008? document, or seems to be the case or seems not to be the case? I don't know. You keep silent, so some views.
I don't know. It's
Who, can we make a vote or ask,
What?
you know? No. Okay. Well, if there is no burning question, then or comment from your side?
Yeah, I think I think you're suggesting that we should talk to ethics committee. I think that's what we're trying to do today. It's exactly that. We wanted to do it. Believe me, it's not easy to do it because, as you very well know, ethics committee have no structure, no representative organization, and that's one plea for today from us to you is that you organize yourself so we can reach out to you and we can exchange information in a more effective way and efficient way, because just to identify the people involved is extremely difficult.
Okay, but we'll take the comment on board that maybe the ad hoc guideline could be, I would say, formatted in a more user-friendly matter. That's maybe a point that we could keep in mind before reaching our conclusion.